The absurdity of the airport system cracks me up sometimes. It's all done by computers. So the information ought to be accurate. I have an app on my phone that tracks the flight, and it updates while the flight is in the air. So I know that Chuan's flight was 5 minutes ahead of time. For a while it was 2 minutes ahead of time, and then within the last half hour it's 5 minutes ahead of time. I had a minor problem getting out the door, and so I didn't arrive until it was the actual time that her flight should arrive. And I'm here at the cell phone lot, so that, because, even if the plane arrives on time, she's still got to get off the plane and wind her way through the airport and get out to the gate. So you sit here in the cell phone lot until she sends you a message and says, come get me. So you don't want to get here too early, but at the same time, you don't want to keep her waiting. So I got here at 11:10. The app on the phone still says that her flight is 5 minutes early. The board up ahead of us, which you can't see right now, says that her flight is still en route, even though it is now 5 minutes past arrival time. And the text message from her says they've arrived and she's on the ground. What is it? I don't know. Anyway, it's like that every time. Absolutely every time. Also, we're out of gas. If I've never mentioned it, that's the thing about this Prius, is I never notice it until the alert light comes on and says, hey, you're out of gas. So I get on the freeway, which is where we get our absolute worst mileage because of the nature of the hybrid engine. And it goes, by the way, you're out of gas. And I'm running late, which I wasn't, so I could have stopped to get gas. Hopefully the distance-ometer, it's not an odometer, I mean it is the odometer, but I mean it's the reverse. It's the how far you go till you run out of gas indicator, whatever that's called. Reverse odometer? I don't know. Says I've got 25 miles, which is, more than enough distance to get home. But I'm gonna get gas on the way home. It's upgrade the MacBook Day, and I'm just watching through the installation videos to remind me of this process. I have cracked this once before, and I can't remember why. Maybe it was the older one, the old MacBook. I don't remember, but anyway, yeah, I've done this before. This particular model, these particular upgrades. So I'm watching the installation videos from the place where I bought the equipment, and then I'll proceed. Installation was pretty straightforward. First, you had to remove the two memory modules. They're stacked one on top of the other, so it's just a matter of releasing the clips and pulling them out. Second one, like I say, is underneath it. It's a little harder to get your fingers on. But not impossible. The hard drive has a retaining bar, which I've already removed before I get to this, and then you just pull it out by a tab that's stuck to the drive and remove the cable. There's a couple of pins that you have to take out of the drive and put in, and then they settle down into place here. This is a 500 gig SSD I'm putting back in. Just reattaching the cable, and you put the pins in place, and then I'll put the retaining bar in afterwards. That's what I needed the T6 Torx driver for, was just those retaining pins. Everything else was Phillips. And there, it's in place. And now I put the memory back in. Well, not back in, this is the new memory. Pops in nice and secure. I do recommend that you watch a video if you're doing this work. There's like a special spot you have to push on the case when you're putting the back back on to get it to pop back in place, but if you know the spot, it just goes right in. Well, it's all back together and seems to be working. Memory is showing 8 gigs as it's supposed to and functioning. The hard drive was blank, but it's initialized and everything looks good. All I'm doing now is I'm running the carbon copy to restore the backup from before I shut the machine down. And that will take a while. But when it's done, this machine should boot up and be exactly the machine it was before. Only hopefully a bit faster. I don't hold out a lot of hope, but I hold out a little hope. Obviously disk speeds will be faster. That helps in some capacity, and more memory has to help up to some point. Whether or not it's enough to make a meaningful difference, I don't know. You can see I've got this little side yard here, and obviously it's been here since I got the house. What wasn't here was this block wall. It used to be oleanders and a small chain link fence. I don't know, 4 foot high. And the neighbors put in this block wall, making this a lot more secure. I had that fence put in the front, even though there's a tree there. And that's the problem. There's a tree there, there's a tree here, and then there's this fence. Now this, and since I have the gate up there now, this fence is of no value. And in fact, I don't know if you can see this. Yeah. There's a small chain link fence behind it. And I'm thinking of taking it all out so that you could go through there and then you could go into the backyard. And let's go around to the other side and I'll show you what the backyard looks like over there. Okay, we're in the backyard now, which is muddy for reasons that I don't want to go into. If you saw my video the other day where we put in the new path stones, and we rearranged the path stones, you may have wondered from the aerial shot why there's all those stones and pieces of wood just lying in the middle of the dirt yard. And the answer is because that damned lab keeps digging this area up, and so we just keep putting stuff down to discourage him. And it has curbed it some, but it hasn't stopped it. He just finds other places, but there's getting to be fewer and fewer, and we just have to chastise him when he does it. Anyway, my backyard has an inner and an outer yard, and we are passing from the inner yard, which is where the dogs and the playground are, the pool, to the outer yard. Ironically, this yard was put in here to put the dog that we had out here at times so that the kids could play in the inner yard without being jumped upon by dogs that were bigger than they were. But you can come around this side and it leads us right to that fence. So if you got in the side gate and you came through and this was down or it was turned into a gate and you could come through, you would make it into the outer yard, which means the dogs don't come over here. they could be allowed to come over here if I wanted to. So it is still entirely self-contained. But it would give us another path to get some things into the backyard. Unfortunately, this yard is very constrained in the path to get anything into it. And that's going to come into play if we have the pool removed, which I would dearly love to do. On the other hand, we may not be able to do anything with it with these big trees here either. Hours have elapsed, and still the MacBook is loading the copy data back. It's been 3 hours and 14 minutes of data copying alone. And it's getting there. It's three quarters of the way there. So I can't remove it from the board until it's working. So I can't remove upgrade MacBook Pro from the board. And I got that part that I showed you in the last one. I ordered it. I had to wait until today. I had to call them on the phone, talk to them about it. They explained stuff to me about how Windows work. Long story there, but anyway, we were able to identify this as a Hope window. That's the name of the company that made them out of New York. I guess they don't exist anymore. And they took me at my word, sort of, but they said, please send us pictures so that we can verify that we've got the right part. So I sent them the pictures. I sent them the picture showing it with the picture of the part. I sent them a couple of in situ pictures of the lock in its place. And they got back to me today and said, that looks like the part. It's $25. It's $8 shipping. And if you want, just call us and order it. So I had to call them on the phone. Again, I called them twice today on the phone. Like a caveman. Parts on the way. So I've dotted line across Window Hardware because it's on the way and I'm confident. So that's so far today. Now I got to do some computer stuff. Website things. It's finished copying. When it comes to the end of the copying, when you're using Carbon Copy in this way, it says, oh, do you want to reconfigure the drive and add an Apple recovery partition, which we do, and it did that, and so it's all completed. I've shut the machine down. I've disconnected the external drive. This should be the moment. So let's find out what happens. Ready? That was a lot faster. That opening bit was a bit like booting a Windows box, but once it got to the login screen, that was zippy. That's a huge improvement. Now I've got some Geekbench scores and some hard drive scores. Of course, the hard drive scores are going to blow the doors off the old ones, but the Geekbench scores may not. We'll just have to see what happens. But I'll try it out, compare it to the old one.